All right, and welcome to the big show today. We are obviously, Tuesday, and we are trying to continue to talk about the combine, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the guys that the Steelers might be interested in and some other things as well. We call it the big show because I'm not sure we really know what the what this show is called. But it's kind of interesting. We've talked a little bit about the Steeler quarterback situation, and perhaps some of the discussion has been about guys that they could sign. But it is kind of interesting to me that Shedeur Sanders is a guy who, in my estimation, is always going to be in the crosshairs just because of who he is. I found it very interesting today. I don't know if you saw the story with Josina Anderson, where she's going on and on and on and on and on and on about the Twitter. On Twitter, I was reading this today. She was angry because there's some quarterback coach for one of the teams in the top 7, she says, that has said some things about Shedeur Sanders and basically that he's brash and arrogant and they're not sure that he fits with their team and all this other stuff. But, of course, she's very upset by this and doesn't think it's fair, doesn't think it's right, doesn't think it really kind of jibes with everything that she has heard about Shedeur Sanders. I get tired of this kind of stuff. I really do. It's clear Josina Anderson has a relationship with Deion Sanders. It's clear she's, sort of a mouthpiece for the family. But at the end of the day, she's supposed to still be a journalist. And to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, really. It just doesn't make a lot of sense that she's so adamant about all of this stuff that she's now going to go to Twitter to basically say, if you're, talking about Shedeur Sanders in a way that is not, he's incredibly positive, then basically, there's some sort of injustice. Listen to me right now, very carefully, as somebody who's covered sports for, 35 years or something, 33 years, 32 years, whatever it's been. I've been around many, many draft picks. I've been around the combine several times. I've been to the draft. I've basically been around, college pro days. People that are coaches and scouts are always looking for what's wrong with the prospect. Because the bottom line is, they're going to basically go out and they're going to invest a whole lot of money in this guy. And so they're looking for what's right or what's wrong. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. I'm just feeling like it's important to note that. It's just one of those things where I feel like you understand that all of these coaches and these scouts, they're looking for reasons to not draft a guy. And it's not just Shedeur Sanders. It's every guy. Because they want to figure out, what are the flaws in this guy? What are the problems with this guy? Are there anything that we're going to overlook? It's sort of like when you go buy a car, right? You go buy a car, you get the idea, okay, pick a car. I want a Mercedes. So you go to the shop and you go looking for a Mercedes. But then you realize, I'm going to invest $45,000 into this car, or $50,000. I don't even know what a Mercedes costs. Let's say $50,000. Okay? I'm going to invest $50,000. Period. And my thing is, Hang on one second. Okay. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. Sorry about that. It's one of those things where you're going to invest $50,000 in a car. And the next thing you know is, I feel like you want to make sure that you're investing your money in the car, and all of that other stuff. But you want to make sure that this car is worth the $50,000, and that's what you're trying to figure out. It's just a thing of where now you're going to go, well, the leather seats, I'm not sure I like that. It's one of those things where the leather seats are this. Maybe I don't like them as much. I don't like the air conditioning, or I don't like the where the gear shift is. You're looking for a reason not to buy the car because you don't want to know, because you want to make sure that if you are going to invest $50,000 into a car, that you're getting what you want. Period. It's just one of those things where that's what these coaches and scouts do. That's their job. That's what their job is. And so, they're going to come up with comments where they say, well, I don't think this guy fits what we're looking for. I don't think this guy is what we're looking for. I don't think this guy's as strong. This guy doesn't have as big of an arm as we think. And in this case, here's what she said. This is Josina Anderson. She's a reporter now, not an agent. She's a reporter. Let's see. I'm disappointed to hear that a quarterback's coach from a team drafting in the top 7 referred to Shedeur Sanders as coming off as brash and arrogant in his team interview, making his assessment known to a number of people per source. In other words, he talked to a few other coaches or a few other scouts and someone got back to him. Period. Okay, fine. But to me, this goes on at the combine every single year about every single player. I mean, there were guys that were talking about they were basically, they talk. I remember when Peyton Manning was coming out, where people were talking about, we don't think he's athletic enough. We don't think his arm strength is what it should be. I mean, we don't think, and there are people that call people aloof. It is really good. It is really, really good in my mind, right? That's a part of the process. It's just a part of the process. And since it's a part of the process, this is stupid. Then she says, I'm purposely not naming the team as not to directly call the team out. I'm just sharing that this coach's personal assessment is a direct opposite from how Sanders came across to many reporters in his press conference with media at the combine. Sanders appeared to go out of his way to acknowledge multiple media members, regardless if they were recognizable or not. Alternatively, these observations were distinctly different from how another quarterback prospect came off to some in the media last year in Indy. Okay? So, in other words, who cares? Then there was somebody that said, there's somebody that was said basically, according to league sources, it's one of those things where they said in the league sources have said that he didn't get any better. He didn't get any better from year to year. There's some that said they didn't like his antics, on the field. There's some that said basically that this is an issue. But the bottom line is, okay, you're a reporter. And there's rumors that come out about all these guys. Every single year it happens. It's just one of those things where, I'm so tired of these reporters that act like they're on the payroll. You're not on the payroll. You're a reporter. And even if you were a guy who, even if you're a reporter who works for a team in some ways, There's a line that you don't cross. And the problem I have with Josina Anderson is she's got a few of her favorites, and they're very clear to see. All you got to do is follow her work a little bit, and you understand who all of her sources are, number one, and who all of her favorites are. And it's very clear Deion Sanders is a friend of hers, or they have some sort of relationship. And basically, she's acted like a clown when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. Here's what I'm going to tell you about Shedeur Sanders. There are some people that evaluate him as a top 5, top 8, can't miss kind of quarterback. Some that think that he's that good. There are others that are going to evaluate him and they say, you know what? We don't even know if he's a first rounder. Because that's how wide the opinions are on him based on the way that he played at Colorado. There were games where it looked like he was the best guy in the draft. It's just one of those things where there's other times when he just didn't look that good. And so, and so I think that he's no different than any of these other prospects. There's questions about them all. There's questions about them all. Every single one of them. And I feel like the idea that somehow, and we're going through this thing with the Sanders already. I can see it. It's been for the last 2 years. And here's the other thing. I love Deion Sanders. As many people that follow my work know, I'm a big Florida State fan. I love Florida State. That's just who I have always grown up, rooting for and all that other stuff. And they've just always been my team. Deion Sanders was one of my first favorite players. Okay? He's an all-time great. He's somebody that I really, really enjoy. But Deion Sanders and company at Colorado the last 2 years did not help themselves with the way they acted. It's just the way it is. And so, they acted like jerks at times. And the thing about it is they didn't win anything in the last 2 years. And so now we got a situation of where Shedeur Sanders, some people don't like that. And if you're confused as to why that would be a concern to some teams, I would say take a look at the Steelers with George Pickens. Let's compare that. And George Pickens is a receiver, so he's not quite as critical to the team as your quarterback. Could you imagine if some of the antics that George Pickens has had over the last 2 years, if he was the quarterback, how much different it would be? That's a problem. And I don't think people understand that. That's a problem. And I feel like when you see it that way, okay, you see it in a way of where that's a problem. If I'm drafting a quarterback, I got to at least pause. I got to at least take a second and say, okay, do I really want this guy in my locker room as a leader? That doesn't mean that, you don't draft him. But the idea that somehow, Shedeur Sanders should be above criticism is stupid. Flat out stupid. Most of the criticism that's come his way and Deion Sanders' way, they've brought it upon themselves. And, some of it is racially charged. But you know what? There's a lot of black coaches and quarterbacks that don't get criticized the way that Sanders did and the way that Shedeur Sanders did. And it's not because they're black. It's because of the way they conducted themselves. Now, I happen to think Deion is good for, a good role model for his players in many, many ways. I think he's a guy that really gets it when it comes to, paying players and players' market value and all that stuff. I get it. But by the same token, when you shoot off your mouth as much as those two guys did, you would think that they won the Big 12 at their very least. And they didn't. In fact, the first year they were terrible. So my point there is, listen, I understand that we get upset about, certain guys getting criticized for whatever reason, but the Sanders thing is the dumbest thing ever. The people that act like somehow the criticism of him has been unwarranted and all the other stuff. I love Deion as much as the next, But, I had an old coach way back in the day that they always used to say, listen, if you're gonna woof all the time, you're gonna make yourself really easy to find on the football field. You're gonna make yourself somebody that's gonna be a target. And I was playing flag football in Philadelphia. I'll never forget this. I had a guy who was saying that. The coach of that team was saying that. Quit woofing all the time, because when you're woofing out there, everybody knows where you're at. And there was a guy who was like a defensive end type guy who was always talking trash and being brash and doing all that crap. And guess what? One team had enough of him, and they ran a crackback play in a flag football game and nearly took his head off. That's how it happens. It's how easy it is. So my point is, when it comes to this thing with Shedeur Sanders, it's okay to criticize him. And the idea that somehow he's being unfairly criticized or singled out is ridiculous. Again, 30 years in the media. I've been around football. I've been around, pro days. I've been to the combine. I've been to drafts. I've been to all these things. You know what? It's always, and even in recruiting for, colleges recruiting, you know what is always the case? If there's somebody that's really good, they're trying to figure out, okay, what's the downside of this guy? What's the problem with this guy? What's the situation where maybe we don't want this guy in our locker room? So what this quarterback coach said about Shedeur Sanders, it's not even really, to me, it's so innocuous. And the fact that we've got a quote-unquote NFL reporter who's losing her mind about it is absolutely silly too. Shedeur Sanders are probably going the top 5, maybe top 7 or 8 draft picks. And you know what? I think he'll have a shot to be a pretty good player. But I also could see where it doesn't work with him. I could also see that. I mean, I could just see, to me, how that works, where quarterbacks in the first round are as much of a crapshoot as anyone. It's just important for that. It's just one of those things where, you have to understand that every quarterback is going to be scrutinized. Period. Just like, every quarterback that's even still in the league is scrutinized. It's the highest profile position. Period. It's the highest profile position on the field. And that's where it goes. Another story that came out, yesterday that was hilarious. Did you see Bill Belichick in North Carolina they're going to do Hard Knocks? And of course, what's funny to me, and this is always hilarious, a bunch of NFL owners came out and they were all upset, anonymously, of course, upset that the NFL that they decided to do Bill Belichick and North Carolina. I mean, it's kind of hilarious to me. Well, then, of course, what happened? NFL Films basically was looking for somebody to do a Hard Knocks because the reality is it's one of those things where none of the teams want to do it. This is just ridiculous. Now, it's funny, since it's come out that some of the owners are upset, now all of a sudden, basically, North Carolina is not going to be doing Hard Knocks. But it just goes to show you how dumb this whole thing is. The teams don't want to do it. The teams don't want to do it. And one of the biggest reasons why it's hilarious to me is because of the whole Saquon Barkley the disaster. I mean, the NFL, the Giants did the preseason Hard Knocks. Do you remember that? This is one of the things that they were upset about. I just have to laugh at this, right? But the Giants, you remember the Giants general manager? The Giants general manager was on Hard Knocks, and of course they had him on the phone, basically saying that they're going to choose Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley. And of course, as the season started to go on and it became clear that Barkley was the guy and everything else, all of a sudden, that clip became viral and more viral and more viral. And then, of course, Saquon Barkley goes all the way and wins the Super Bowl. And, of course, that clip became more and more viral. It was a real embarrassment. Like a real embarrassment, because the Giants general manager looked like a total moron. Well, now teams are hesitant for that. They're hesitant because they don't want to be the next guy to be on the TV. Basically making a stupid trade or a stupid decision and then getting ripped for it. They should. It just is what it is. But it is kind of funny. Like I said, Belichick was going to do it. And the NFL films, and a number of people in the NFL objected to it. But it's kind of like, well, none of you want to do it. And I'll say this. I thought, honestly, the AFC North was pretty good. The Hard Knocks AFC North. I would like them to do that again. Something like that was probably pretty good. But we'll see. Either way, I found that story amusing. I found the story about Shedeur Sanders amusing because we've been talking about the Steelers and quarterbacks, and there's some people are even like, well, maybe he'll fall to the close to the Steelers where they can go get him. It's just funny to me. It's just hilarious to me. It really is. So anyway, here we got an update. Carl Dunbar is back now. Remember, I guess Carl Dunbar was not going to get his contract renewed. And then all of a sudden, it's going to be fun. I guess he's back. So that's a good thing, too. Anyway, on a more serious note, and of course, we're having a little bit of fun here today. On a more serious note, it really, really, really is going to be very, very interesting to me to see how they get this thing done with Justin Fields. That's what's going to happen. That's honestly what's going to happen. They're going to do this thing where they're going to try and get it done before he hits the free agent market. So what's interesting about that is how much money is that going to cost? It's just going to be interesting to see, because I don't know what his market value really is. But I think that his market value, if he goes on to the actual market, might be a little higher than what the Steelers want to pay. So, let's say they want to pay $12 million. He gets the market for $16 or $17 million. That's probably more than they want to pay. They might want to try and say, okay, we really only want to pay him $12 million, but let's see if we can get him for $13.5 before he gets to the market. That negotiation is going to be very interesting to see how it goes. Because I think that when you look at, what quarterbacks are getting paid, starting quarterbacks in the NFL probably for the most part are getting $30 million or more. I mean, if you look at NFL, if you go here to Spotter and you look at quarterback contracts, Um, it's basically, the top guys are all making 60, 55 million, all that. We've been over that, but if you look at it from this standpoint, the average salary, Dak Prescott makes 60, but you go all the way down to Baker Mayfield's making 33 million. Geno Smith is going to make 25 million, and I think he just signed a new deal. But that's the top 19 guys. Then you've got a number of guys who are on rookie deals. But, Justin Fields probably is somewhere between Gardner Minshew at 5 and Geno Smith at 25. So it's going to come down to, are the Steelers able to keep him off the market? Keep him away from going onto the market? Because I think if he goes on the market, it's going to cost him a lot more money. I do. I think that really Justin Fields is probably going to cost, $5, $6, $7 million more if there's competition for him. Because I think there will be a few teams that would bid for him. That's really how it goes. And I think that's the key to me is, if they can get this done before the free agent period coming up on Monday or something, that would be great. And I think that's the whole thing about it, is that it's really, really important to note that the Steelers have about 4 days to get this done. The good news is we won't be talking about quarterbacks anymore if they get it done. So in the next 4 days, let's see if they do. But I think that it's important now to figure it out. Okay, if that's what you're going to do, then I would tell you it's going to be very, very interesting coming from, everybody else. It's going to be very interesting to see, what exactly falls into place around him. Like if they're able to get him off the market for a good number, then what? Does that mean they can go out and sign a receiver for a lot of money in the first few days, or a corner for a lot of money in the first few days? These things are really interesting to me, for sure. So, I would say, the quarterback talk has been really stale, kind of boring at times, but it's coming to an end because I think they want to get this done. I do think that they want to get this done. And when they do, it's just going to be Justin Fields is the guy and is probably going to be the guy for the next 3 years. Unless he's so bad, that they have to go get somebody else next year. But if they sign him, my prediction is they'll sign a veteran backup and draft a guy. And I don't know who they would sign as a backup. There's a lot of guys out there they can grab. Maybe Jameis Winston, right? There's a lot of guys they can grab. But at the end of the day, that's probably the least significant piece. Just somebody to be the backup in case he gets hurt. It won't shock me if they then go and draft a guy to add to their room. So anyway, the game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings, Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's and enjoy a good time and a good meal and everything else. And when you get there, tell Archie I said hello. It's funny, last week, you remember Archie had the great promotion. If Pitt beats Louisville, somebody in the crowd at Archie's watching the game is going to win 2 free season tickets for next basketball season. That seemed to be a pretty safe promotion to have, as he was never in danger of having to give away 2 tickets. So I'm assuming he'll have something more for I think their last game might be on Saturday, correct? Or whatever it is. He might have another promotion to try and go with it to see if he can get people interested in coming to Archie's to watch a Pitt basketball game. Until such time, enjoy your evening, enjoy your time, and hopefully we will do it again tomorrow. As one broadcaster used to say, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.